Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are painting Stormy Seas and it's one of my favorites to paint. Now if you have the book handy, you'll see all of the colors that I've used. So I'm starting with a mixture of Payne's Grey and a little bit of warm sepia and also yellow ochre, and just using a palette knife to drop this into my area where my rocks are. Now you can also use something like an old credit card or a hard piece of plastic like a piece from a ruler to just make some rocks. And this helps to keep them abstract and less detailed, dropping in some darker shades of that Payne's Grey and warm sepia as you go. Now I'm wetting the area where my light is going to be, and I'm dropping in just a little bit of lemon yellow in that space. So around the light. Now use this with my book. In the book you'll have the outline for it and step-by-step instructions as well. So if you struggle to follow along with the YouTube video, you can always refer back to the book. So just drop in that yellow. And now we wet the whole area all around it. So around your rocks and all the way up to the sky. Around the lighthouse, you do not want to put a lot of paint. So we do wet that area so that the paint can naturally bleed into that space, but you do not want to add too much color there. Now I'm starting with a forest green just to bring out some of those green tones in the ocean, and then I go in with ultramarine blue. Letting the green and the blue mix together. I'm using Payne's Grey for the sky and letting that just bleed in. You don't want to paint that too close to the lighthouse. And then adding some of that Payne's Grey just below the rocks as well. Okay, now spray. You can spray this a bit more or wet the area just to have some of that softer edges. You don't want a hard edge. Dabbing some of it with your microfiber cloth or paper towel. I'm just adding some more paint here where I lightened it at the bottom. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't go close to my lighthouse. You do want it to be a bit of a light edge though. So I'm just using a clean brush and a bit of water to soften the edge. You can add a bit more paint if you want to, if you feel it needs it, but soften that edge. I'm being mindful not to go over my yellow because blue and yellow will give you green and you don't want green coming out in your sky. So just work that area until you are happy with it, with a bit of a softer edge. I like the corners to be pretty dark, so I'm just dropping in some more Payne's Grey here. Okay, now let this dry and then we re-wet the area next to the lighthouse. So you can use a hairdryer or anything to let this dry. And now we are dropping in some shadows behind our lighthouse. You don't want these to be too harsh, so you are really just dropping in that color and then softening the edges with a clean brush and a bit of water. Okay, same on the other side. I'm just wetting it again because it's dried. So dropping in some shadows just with Payne's Grey. And softening the edges just with a bit of water. Clean brush, water. We're going to let this dry completely before we start painting our lighthouse because you don't want the colors from your lighthouse to bleed into the area that you've just done. So once you are happy with it, either use a hair dryer or just let it dry for a few minutes and then you can come back to it and paint the lighthouse. Now I'm doing some layering in my lighthouse. So I do want to add some shadows into it as well. So I'm going to wet the layers, each section, and then I'm going to drop in a little bit of Payne's Grey, as you can see here. So dropping in a bit of that Payne's Grey, clean your brush and with a bit of water, just soften it. And this will give the white layers just a bit of a shadow. And then let that dry and then you paint the area with whichever color you'd like. I use the French vermilion just to paint these sections of the lighthouse. I like to start with a red one at the bottom because I like the contrast of the rocks and the red, but totally up to you which colors you want to use, or if you just want to keep it white. Then the little roof of your lighthouse, also painting that red. And also just dropping in a little bit of Payne's Grey so that it's not a very bright red and it's got some texture to it. So I started with my palette knife and then I had my number 8 Princeton brush and now I'm on to the number 2 Princeton brush for the finer details. These are all round brushes, but use whatever brush you feel comfortable with. I'm painting the windows just with Payne's grey as well. Now you can add to this a splatter if you want to. If you want to create some more texture, a splatter always works well, even if you've got a bit of white gouache to do a splatter with. That could work really well. So I'm just finishing this with some shadows, with a bit of a balcony at the top, and just some small details. There we go.